Welcome back to the Comeback Kid. That song gets me so hyped up, man. Oh man, that was throwback to when Craig Kimbrell was on the Padres for a year and came out to close games out to that song. Man, oh man, that's when we thought that the Padres would actually be something. But this segment isn't about the Padres. I should contain myself. This is about the NHL, Matt. So, as I mentioned at the opening of the show, last Friday we went to go watch the Anaheim Ducks against the Winnipeg Jets, and the Ducks didn't look so good, but a lot of other players and teams have surprisingly looked good thus far this season, Matt. So we're gonna play a little game here, and how this is gonna work is I am going to ask you a question. You're gonna answer it. Wow, what a game, right? Yeah. So surprises, Matt. What has surprised you thus far this NHL season?
I think it's what surprised me the most, and we're going to keep talking about them as Vegas Golden Knights. I think they were super responsive maybe to their first dry spell where they lost a few games that may or may not have been related to me hyping them up only to go on a losing streak, and I ended up riding the bus.
So keep track of maybe the next 3 to 4 games for the Las Vegas Golden Knights listeners at home, because if Matt jinxes them again, it's official. He has cursed them. But anyways, keep going, Matt.
Well, maybe since they're in the Pacific Division, maybe I should just always praise them, because then that'll mean that the Ducks will finish above them, hopefully. I don't know. But anyways, going back to the Golden Knights, they finished out their California road trip with 3 wins. 3 wins, no losses. I think that is super big for them, and they were all very convincing results, too. I just remember them playing the Ducks, and they had 49 shots on goal, and I think they held the Ducks to 18. So they are a very fast team, very active defense, meaning their defenders are coming up to join their attack and scoring goals. And like I've said before, it doesn't matter who's in the net, they're getting wins. So I think they're a big surprise. Another one I would say is the Kings bouncing back as contenders. Last year, they didn't make the playoffs. They did not look good. Really not a lot of personnel changes either. Maybe the only acquisition of note was bringing back former Kings great Michael Camilleri on a club friendly contract. I think it was 1 year, $1 million. I haven't seen a lot of results from him, but new coach, new front office has meant wins for the Kings, and hopefully that's not sustaining, but for now it is. I would say that's probably the biggest as far as teams that are standing out. Another player that I think is worth noting is John Tavares out of the New York Islanders. He's had a great few weeks these last few weeks, and I think he's coming back as a league standout, which I think is very good for him being a pending free agent, and maybe it'll lead to a new contract. Which he's been rumored for the last few years as trade bait and not staying in the Islanders organization. So it'll be interesting to see where we go from there.
It's a little suspicious, I would even say, across sports that players such as Tavares wait till their contract year to have these immense years, potentially for reaching that big payday in free agency. So it'll be interesting to see if he ends up getting that payoff. So has there been anyone else or any other team that has surprised you thus far, so far this season, Matt?
Yeah, Steven Stamkos. He's healthy this year. We don't get to say that often. He played 17 games last year and was out the remaining of the year due to another leg injury. I think it was a broken leg. And I must say I was very disappointed because I had him on my fantasy team last year, and I held on to him thinking that he's coming back, and he never did. That might have been the difference between me winning the league or not. I was 18-1, and that wasn't good enough, so whatever. So yeah, I think Stamkos is a standout, and we'll get more to the remaining players later on.
Definitely, but before we do that, as I said before, we were at the Ducks game this past Friday. They lost by a score of 3-1 against the Winnipeg Jets, and this is a Ducks team that has been so ravaged by injuries that they've almost completely depleted their San Diego Gulls roster, coming up, calling them up to the big club, and so they're basically fielding like a rough equivalent to like a AA, a AAA side against teams like the Winnipeg Jets, who have a very strong defense and are definitely in the playoff hunt. And when you're putting players on the ice that really don't have the experience that the Winnipeg Jets have, it's a recipe for disaster. But Nate, as you were saying the other day, these injuries really shouldn't be an excuse for the Anaheim Ducks.
No, no, I don't think that you can rely on injuries as an excuse. Every team's got injuries. And, you guys can take my opinion with a grain of salt as someone who does not know that much about hockey, does not follow hockey, but I think that the Ducks have some serious problems. Obviously, not to sound like, and it's not to sound sarcastic here, but you need to score goals to win games. And right now, the Ducks aren't scoring goals.
Okay, Joe Buck.
I'm being serious. I'm being serious. You need to score goals, and right now the goals have completely dried up for the Ducks. And like you said, it seems to me like they're averaging giving up 50 shots a game. And so you can only ask your goalies to do so much. I thought after the Bruins game that we had kind of started to turn a corner. I know the Bruins aren't a great team, but they are a pretty good team. Shout out to some of my Bruins friends on Twitter. We were doing a little banter before the game, and it was. I thought after the Bruins game, we had turned a corner, but clearly not. So I get it that there's injuries, but hey, these guys are still professional hockey players. So get this turned around, or let's go out and make some moves and find some people who can get this turned around.
Bruins friends? Are you friends with some of the Bruins players on Twitter?
No, like Bruins fans. Bruins fans. Yes.
That's more like it.
What?
I
thought it was implied.
I thought it was
Okay,
implied.
break it up, guys. Break it up. So, bringing it back to the Ducks, Nate, you mentioned maybe going out via trade and fixing these kinds of problems. Matt, who do you think? Do you have any names in mind who the Ducks could go see, or maybe positionally somewhere they can add?
Yeah, so the position that they need is centers. I mean, they have both Ryan Kessler and Ryan Getzlaf. I would say easily two of the top 15 or 20 centers in the league are both out with substantial injuries, and we won't see them until after the new year. I think that means you have to go get a center. They've been relying on Antoine Vermette. They're basically their face-off specialist to take a lot more minutes. And Derek Grant, who I must say he's 27 years old and did not score his first goal until this year. And now he's our first-line center where you want scorers to be at. And it's been an experiment. I wouldn't say the experiment is working right now. One name that's always been linked as being trade bait is Sami Vatanen, who's a fan favorite, but just frankly has not looked well this year. So he might be looking for a place to start new, or to start over, just because of his poopy year. I think that he would be a very a good candidate to bring back a top six forward from another team. One name that's always been thrown around, or I shouldn't say always, but he was being scouted during that Ducks-Bruins game, is David Krejci of the Boston Bruins. He's a great defensive forward. He's able to score. He's a two-way threat, kind of like Ryan Kessler, plays a very similar game. I would like to see that trade happen just because of what the team will look like when Kessler and Getzlaf are back. I think that would make them a very strong offensive team and a suitor for the Cup again. I know that I know that the Ducks were also linked to Matt Duchene before he got traded. I'm glad that they did not get Duchene, because in his 8 games with Ottawa, he has 1 goal, and that's it. He's been off to a terrible start and is already looking like a bust for Ottawa. So maybe David Krejci is the way to go, but regardless, it should be a top 6 forward and preferably a center.
Great stuff, Matt. So the Ducks need some serious help. However, you have a name in mind who doesn't need much help, and this is when we're moving into our little activity here that I mentioned before. So these are, I guess, our quote-unquote like high school standouts, or in other words, the NHL standouts thus far this season. So I'm going to be naming some kind of, or some label of a standout, and you are going to tell me which player so far this NHL season has fit this label. So first up, we have the most likely to succeed. Who is the most likely to succeed going into the rest of the NHL season?
I think the easy answer is Nikita Kucherov out of Tampa Bay. I was looking for the definition of the word dominance in the Webster Dictionary, and the photo of Nikita Kucherov was pulled up. He has 34 points in 23 games, 17 goals, 17 assists. For all of you people listening who don't know a lot about hockey, that is a lot of points at this point in the season. He's been fortunate enough to be a line mate with Steven Stamkos, but I think he's arguably been more exciting than Stamkos, and I already was praising Stamkos. So he's a 24-year-old right winger. So not only is he going to have a good season, but he's still developing. He hasn't hit his prime yet. I'm really excited to see what Kucherov does in the remainder of the season. Potential Maurice Rocket Richard winners for most goals.
And my star fantasy player, I took Nikita Kucherov with the 3rd overall pick in our draft, and I guess he should have gone number 1 because he has been carrying my team to its 8-1 record now. I think I am far ahead in first place, but less about me. I need to humble down a little bit. So another award would be, thus far in the NHL season, who has stood out to you as the most talented players?
Okay, so most talented is an interesting category. I'm going with Charlie McAvoy and Austin Matthews. So younger players. So Charlie McAvoy, this is his rookie season. He's a defender out of Boston. He's a very talented player. You can look up any highlight reel, and he's probably in it for like best plays of the month. He's been an amazing addition to the Bruins defense, something that has kind of been shaky over the last few years. He's seen a lot of minutes with Zdeno Chara, future Hall of Famer, 40-year-old. He's 6'9", scary player. So to be paired with him has meant that they've been very good compliments, I would say. McAvoy's easily a more offensive-minded player, and Chara can stay at home, even though he's got a wicked slap shot. So I think they've been paired together very well. He can work a little more on his plus-minus, but I wouldn't worry too much about that. He's a 19-year-old defenseman. I think that'll come with more time in the league. And I think also you have to include Austin Matthews in this conversation. He's avoiding the sophomore slump. That's been proven to be a real thing over the last few years. Obviously, last year he won the Calder Trophy for the Rookie of the Year. I think he's proven that he's going to stick around as a top player in the league. I would say arguably like one of the top 10, top 5 players in the league now. And a list I would say is always changing because the league is getting younger and faster, which means that Austin Matthews has been thriving in this environment. But yeah, talking about avoiding the slump, the Toronto Maple Leafs are currently 3 points out of a division lead, something that they would not be saying 2 years ago. And yeah, they're 3 points behind the Tampa Bay Lightning, so that'll be an interesting division to see or to follow as the year moves along.
Great stuff, Matt. So this next award, depending on who you ask, could be a positive or a negative. So in your mind, who is most likely to finish the season with the most penalty minutes?
Anthony Mantha out of the Detroit Red Wings. He is a big power forward, which means that he likes to crash the net, get a lot of chippy goals, but he's also got a good stick on him. He can get past defenders and score. He is a big forward, which means that he gets in a lot of trouble. The other night, he had 25 penalty minutes in one game. He got ejected. And lucky for me, I set up our fantasy league so that every minute of penalties is a point. So, for all you mathematicians out there, 25 penalty minutes is 25 fantasy points. That brought his fantasy ranking from like 28 to number 4. It just one game. He had 55 fantasy points that night because he also was scoring. So he's a dual threat. He can punish you on the scoreboard and in the penalty box. So I think I got to go with Anthony Mantha to finish the year with the most penalty minutes if he continues on this track.
Yeah, and I remember that day you'd sent me a screenshot of his scoring on the ESPN fantasy app, and you had texted it to me. And I was like, holy crap, like 56 points or whatever. Yeah. And then you sent a follow-up text of, it was because he had 25 penalty minutes. And I'm like, this league, Matt, what have you done?
I'm not sure what's more impressive, the penalty minutes or the actual points that he got.
Yeah, he's definitely, in your words, a dual threat, so to speak. Yeah. So, moving on, we have, and I think you'll have fun with this one, Matt. Who, thus far, player or team, has been the quote-unquote class clown of the league?
Oh, jeez. Out of the top of my head, I got to go with the Edmonton Oilers. Edmonton, you trifling. You have arguably the best player in the league, Connor McDavid, and you can't win a game. I mean, Arizona was the early story. I think they started the year like 0-10, but like Edmonton, like since then, like you might get the first pick again, and you've had plenty of first picks. You shouldn't even have McDavid with the amount of first picks that you've had. So the fact that you're not winning is very concerning for Oilers fans. Not for me. I love it. And especially after the Ducks beat them in Game 7 and broke our Game 7 curse last year. Edmonton does not have a lot to look forward to right now. And it's scary considering that they're paying upwards of $22 million to their top two forwards now, Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, for the next 8 years, and they may not see a lot during those 8 years. So, Edmonton, you are the class clown because you are just ridiculously funny right now.
You know what also is ridiculously funny is you have the Edmonton goalie on your fantasy team. Can you tell us a little bit about this?
Yeah, so I have the Edmonton goalie because I felt that Cam Talbot would be a safe bet to go with. But since then, he averages, I think, -2 points a game. And he's on the season's can't drop list, so I cannot drop him. So I had to pick up another goalie just so Cam Talbot can ride my bench. And I'm very disappointed with that. I tried to make a trade with one of our bottom feeders just to make them even worse, but they didn't even bite. Yeah, bottom feeder. Shout out to James Duke.
Yeah, I was about to say, do you want to call out anyone specifically?
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, and it didn't happen, and I think rightfully so. So now I gotta face the fact that I can't use that slot for anybody. Right now, my goalies are both on the injured reserve, which means that they can't hurt me, which is exactly as planned, that I don't have goalies getting me points because it would only be negative points, and I have Cam Talbot to thank for that. So thank you, buddy.
Yeah, thanks for getting injured, Cam Talbot. Wow, that's pretty cruel, Matt. So, in the spirit of bashing James Ducador, so we move on to our next award, which is most likely to not be able to grow a playoff beard. And my nomination would be James, but I think you had someone else in mind.
Yeah, James, buddy, we got to figure that out. But Clayton Keller of the Arizona Coyotes, he's a young 19-year-old, also another Calder Rookie of the Year contender. He's going to be pushing a lot of votes, but Arizona Coyotes are nowhere near getting into the playoffs, and I'm not even sure if they did get to the playoffs if he could grow a beard. Let's be honest. It's tough. Well, at least for me. Anyways, he plays for a future-focused team, which I think is just another way of saying a not contender.
Yeah, he's not even going to see the playoffs.
Yeah, he's not going to see the playoffs. I mean, he might see it from whatever golf course he's playing on, but that would just be in the clubhouse after a round. He'll have like some Arnold Palmer because he can't even drink yet. That shows just how promising Clayton Keller's future and really the future of the Arizona Coyotes is, but it's not happening this year, so he ain't growing a playoff beard.
There we go, Matt. So we're NHL season in full swing as of right now. Thank you for enlightening our listeners as to what is going on in the NHL sphere. So when we come back, Nate has a lot to tell you guys about the brand new soccer tournament that the United States men's national team will be participating in this coming summer. No, it is not the World Cup. Nate is going to tell you all about what it will be after the break. Stay tuned, everyone.